In the summer of 1981, three friends walked into the woods of New Hampshire to settle an old argument. They were armed with guns built to mark trees and cattle. By the time they walked out, they had accidentally invented a sport that would spread to millions of people around the world. Over the next 40 years, thousands of players stood on a busy paintball field and thought the exact same thing. $50 a person to get in, 1,000 paintballs each on top of that. That owner must be printing money. So a lot of them went out and opened their own field, and most of them went broke. Here is the part almost nobody understands. The man who actually got rich from that first game in the woods never made his fortune running a field at all. He made it selling the paint. That one fact is the whole secret of this business. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly what a paintball field costs, where the money actually hides, and why the cheapest looking thing on the property, a little ball of colored gelatin, is the entire game. The buy-in. Start with what you are actually buying, because it is bigger and emptier than you think. A paintball field is mostly land. You need acres of it, woods or an open lot, with room for playing fields, safety netting, staging areas, a parking lot, and buffer zones so stray paint does not land on a neighbor. Buying or leasing that land and getting it zoned and permitted for public play is usually your single biggest expense, before you have bought a single paintball. Then the field itself, inflatable bunkers, or wooden structures for cover, netting to contain the play area, a chrono station to check marker speed, and a staging area with tables. On top of that, you need a fleet of rental markers and masks for the walk-on crowd, and an air system, a big compressor and tanks to refill the guns all day. Equipment shock catches people. Beyond the land and the building, expect to put in at least $50,000 just to open the gates, and that is a bare minimum. A serious indoor arena costs far more, so the tiers look like this. The outlaw field, someone playing in a back lot with no insurance and no future. The real outdoor park, proper fields, rentals, and an air system on land you own or lease. And the indoor arena, expensive to build but open all year, which matters more than you would guess. Whatever you build, hold this thought. You are buying a lot of land and a pile of gear, but the land and the gear are not the business. What you inherit. You inherit a business that only looks like a game, wrapped in weather and risk. First, the calendar. Paintball is seasonal. It is an outdoor sport in most places, which means you make your money in the good months and go quiet in the cold and the rain. Many fields realistically operate around 8 months of the year, and a single rained-out weekend in peak season is money you never get back. Second, safety and staff. You are handing the public guns that fire hard pellets at speed, so you inherit referees on every field, a chrono station to cap marker velocity, mandatory masks, and a waiver signed by every player. Those referees are staff you cannot cut, because without them there is no safe game. Third, insurance. Insuring a business whose entire activity is shooting projectiles at other people is expensive, and most landlords in towns will not let you operate without it. And fourth, a mindset. People who fail treat this as a paintball field with a business attached. People who survive treat it as a business that happens to sell paintball. That difference decides everything, and it starts with understanding where the money comes from. The revenue layers. A paintball field has several income streams, and the one on the sign is the smallest. Layer 1, the entry fee. A player pays to get in and play for the day. This feels like the main event, but it is often priced low on purpose, because it is the hook, not the profit. Layer 2, and this is the engine of the entire business, paint. On most fields, you have to shoot the field's own paintballs, bought there, at the field's price. You buy cases of paint wholesale and sell them by the bag at a healthy markup, and an aggressive player can burn through thousands of rounds in a single day. The entry fee gets them in the gate. The paint is what they spend real money on, over and over, all day long. Layer 3, rentals. The walk-on crowd, the birthday party, the group of friends trying it once, do not own gear. So they rent your markers, your masks, and your protective vests, for a fee, every visit. Layer 4, air. Every marker runs on compressed air or carbon dioxide, and all day long players come back to your fill station to top up their tanks, for a price. Layer 5, everything else. A snack bar, cold drinks, a pro shop selling gear, and the high-value bookings, birthday parties, corporate team building, and bachelor groups that pay a premium for the whole package. Stack it together and the truth is clear. Entry gets them in, but the paint, the rentals, and the air are where a paintball field actually lives. Listen to that again. Here is the part worth stopping on. The entrance fee is not the business. The paint is the business. A field can charge very little to get in, almost nothing, and still make a fortune, as long as every player has to buy that field's paint to actually play. The game is the bait. The ammunition is the catch. Listen to that again. You are not really selling a paintball game. You are selling little balls of gelatin and dye, one bag at a time, to people who cannot play without them. It is the oldest trick in business. Give away the razor and sell the blades forever. Here, the field is the razor, and the paint is the blade. That is why the single most dangerous decision a field owner can make is letting players bring their own cheap paint from outside. Allow that, and you have given away the only thing that was ever going to make you money. And now you are just a landlord mowing a very large, very expensive lawn. The ledger. Turn the page to what leaves the account, and notice what is heavy. Land comes first. A mortgage or a lease on acres of usable ground, plus property taxes, is a large fixed cost that arrives whether it rains or shines. Then the paint itself. Your biggest revenue source is also a real cost, because you buy those cases wholesale before you sell them. Buy the wrong paint, or buy too much and let it go stale, and it eats you. Then payroll. Referees on every field, someone at the counter, someone at the air station. Then insurance, which is heavy, and field maintenance. Replacing netting, repairing bunkers, mowing, and the endless cleanup of shell and shattered paint. And notice the shape of it. Your costs are large and mostly fixed. The land, the staff, the insurance. Your revenue is seasonal and weather dependent. You are carrying a heavy year-round cost structure on a business that only really earns for part of the year, which is exactly why the margins are thinner than the crowd on a busy Saturday makes them look. The trap. Here is the trap, and it is baked into how the business looks from the outside. Stand on a packed field on a sunny Saturday. Every player paid to get in. Everybody is buying bag after bag of paint. The rental counter is slammed. It looks like a money machine, and that image, that one perfect Saturday, is exactly what lures people into buying a field. That is the first half of the trap. That perfect Saturday hides the empty Tuesday, the rained-out Sunday, and the dead 4 months of winter. The land payment and the insurance do not care that nobody came. Now the second half. Because the entry looks cheap and the paint looks simple, people assume the whole thing is easy, and they open a field without understanding that the paint is the business. They price their paint too low to seem friendly, or worse, they let players bring outside paint to draw a crowd. And just like that, they have handed away their only real profit engine, while keeping every heavy cost. Put it together. You are carrying a large fixed cost, land, insurance, and staff, on a seasonal, weather-dependent business, and the one thing that was supposed to pay for all of it, the paint, is the very thing owners keep giving away to compete. That is how countless fields have come and gone. The history digression. To understand this business, go back to that argument in the woods. In the late 1970s, 3 friends kept debating the same question. Could a city man with street smarts survive in the wild, as well as a country outdoorsman? Hayes Noel was a stockbroker. Charles Gaines was a writer. Bob Guernsey ran a sporting goods shop. The argument went nowhere until Gaines found a strange tool in a farm catalog, the Nell Spot pistol, a gun that foresters used to mark trees and farmers used to mark cattle, firing a ball of paint. So they settled it the only sensible way. On June 7, 1981, 12 men went into the New Hampshire woods with those cattle markers to play a game of capture the flag. The winner was Richie White, a forester, who quietly collected every flag in about an hour without firing a single shot or being seen. Learned skill beat raw instinct, and the argument was finally over. Read what happened next, because it built an industry. One of the players wrote about it in Sports Illustrated, and letters poured in from people desperate to try it. Those 3 friends trademarked it as the national survival game and began selling starter kits. And in 1982, Bob Guernsey opened the first commercial paintball field, made a deal to become the distributor of the paint and the gear, and licensed the game out to others. He did not just run a field, he sold everyone else the paint. Even at the very beginning, the money was in the ammunition. the death spiral. So watch how a field dies, because it follows a familiar script. An owner falls in love with the sport and buys a field to be near the game he loves. He treats it as a hobby with a cash register. To pull a crowd, he keeps the entry price low, and when a rival field opens nearby, he does the one thing that feels like competing but is actually suicide. He lets players bring their own paint, or he sells his so cheap there is no margin left. Now the crowd comes, but the money does not. The players are on the field all day, but they are shooting paint the owner barely profits from, or none at all. Meanwhile, the land payment lands every month. The insurance renews, the referees have to be paid, and winter shuts the whole thing down for a third of the year. Watch the numbers close in. A packed field with no paint margin cannot cover a year-round fixed cost. The owner cuts referees to save money, and the experience and the safety slip. Regulars drift away. Then one long rainy season arrives with the bills still due, and the field that looked so alive on that one perfect Saturday quietly closes its gates for good. The land was never the killer. The giveaway paint was. The survivors. So who survives, and how? Fields still standing did a few specific things right. 1. They protected the paint. Field paint only, priced with a real markup. No outside paint allowed. They understood that the paint is not a service to the customer, it is the entire business model, and they never gave it away. 2. They beat the weather. Smart operators either built or added an indoor arena, or leaned hard on booked events, so they were not living or dying purely on sunny weekends. An indoor field that runs all year is worth far more than a bigger outdoor one that sleeps all winter. 3. They lived on groups. Birthday parties, corporate team building, bachelor parties, and youth groups are booked in advance, pay a premium, buy a ton of paint, and fill the quiet weekday hours. A calendar full of parties is steadier than hoping walk-ons show up. 4. They ran it like a business. They watched their paint cost per case, rented gear to every walk-on, sold air and snacks and gear, and treated every player as paint volume, not just an entry ticket. None of that is about loving paintball. It is about owning the paint, beating the seasons, and booking the groups. So does owning a paintball field work. Let us run it, and treat this as a model, not a real field. You buy a field on affordable land, and you protect your paint from day one. In a good year, the weather cooperates, your weekends are packed, every player is buying your field paint by the bag, your rental counter and air station never stop, and your calendar is full of birthday parties and corporate groups. Because the paint carries a real markup and the crowd keeps shooting, the field throws off solid money all season. That is the good year. Now the other side. A wet spring wipes out your best weekends. A cheaper field opens across town and starts letting players bring outside paint. So to compete, you match them, and your paint margin vanishes. Winter arrives, the gates close for months, but the land payment and the insurance keep coming. Suddenly, a business that looked like a money machine on that one sunny Saturday is bleeding all year long. Here is the real verdict. A paintball field is two bets at once. One is a bet on the sport, that enough people keep wanting to play. The other is a bet on discipline, that you can hold the line on paint, beat the weather with events or an indoor field, and run it like a business instead of a hobby. Win both, and you own a razor and blades machine, with a forest around it. Lose the discipline, give the paint away, and the land and the insurance will bleed you dry, while the crowd has the time of their lives on your dime. So the honest answer is this. A paintball field can absolutely make money, but almost none of that money comes from the game itself. It comes from the paint. Protect the paint, beat the seasons, book the groups, and it can be a very good business. Treat it as a field, with a shop attached, give the ammunition away to fill the lot, and you have bought yourself a very large, very expensive way to watch other people have fun. The thesis close. So look again at what you really bought. Not the game, not the adrenaline of the last player standing, not the flag run, not the sting and the laugh and the war stories in the parking lot afterward. That is the fun, and the fun is only the bait. You bought a paint store with a forest attached. You bought acres of land and a pile of rental guns and a compressor, and you dressed all of it up as a battlefield, so that people would pay you, again and again, for little balls of gelatin they cannot play without. A paintball field owner is not really selling paintball. They are selling ammunition by the bag, on expensive land, in a short season. using the thrill of the game as the reason anyone ever picks up the gun. Protect the paint and respect the land, and the good Saturdays are very good. Forget that the paint was always the point, and the cheapest thing on the whole property will quietly take everything you have.